Welcome to Health Systems CIO's Partner Perspective interview series. I'm Anthony Guerra, founder and editor-in-chief. Today we're talking with Sven Krause, CIO at Hillrom, about the top trends impacting health systems, how Hillrom is expanding to help hospitals address those trends, and why everyone needs to be focused on security. Sven, thanks for joining me today.
Anthony, pleasure being here.
Why don't we start off? Why don't you tell me a little bit about your organization and your role as CIO? I mean, we know what CIO means, but a lot of companies, it means something a little different, right? So tell me about what your role at CIO is over at Hillrom.
That sounds good. Maybe, Anthony, with first Hillrom, global medical technology provider across the globe, about 100 plus countries that we're active in, really focused on three main areas: on the ambulatory, acute, and home care side. 2.8 billion revenue, so fairly sizable, very well represented in the US. So anywhere you go into a physician's office or into a hospital, you will see our Well-Challen and Hillrom brands probably all over. So very excited to be with Hillrom. I joined about 8 months ago as a CIO of Hillrom, and responsible for what we call our digital journey, really lifting Hillrom, and with that all of our customers, our caregivers, our health systems, etc., to the new age and new capabilities.
Very exciting. So tell me a little bit about your career path. Some of the work you've done that sort of put you in a position to take on this role.
Absolutely. So before I joined Hillrom, I spent most of my career in consulting. I used to be with Ernst & Young, global consulting firm. And my last role there was leading the technology activities for what we call our health sciences in the US. So we would help all the manufacturers all the way into the health systems and health providers with new technologies. Like, what are the trends around security, connectivity, and process capabilities truly around clinical workflows, and how can we help them from a consulting perspective? So with that, I've seen a lot of the good, bad, and ugly in the world out there. So for me, doing this now for a medical tech innovator like Hillrom was just the next step of the evolution. So very excited to have taken on that role.
Well, what do you think it is about, what you bring to the table that got you the job? Really, I mean, Hillrom, a company like Hillrom is going to have their choice of, let's say, their choice of anybody. Who they picked you. That's a big deal. What is it about what you bring to the table? What do you think is your sort of special superpower from a technology point of view? Is it a vision? Is it ability to see trends? What is it?
Yeah, I think, Anthony, in reality, what everyone is facing, all of our customers out there, all of the health systems, physicians, etc., is the new realities are around disruption, right? So technology companies are expanding their capabilities into health, whether it's the hyperscalers, whether it's any of the technology, service providers. They're all expanding in that space, and what our hospitals and providers are seeing is a massive need, not only to get disrupted but also to innovate. What you see in the consulting world is you're always at the forefront of innovation, right? So what does it mean to move to more AI and machine learning in the health space, for example? What does it mean to cloudize, move into cloud, and lift all of our capabilities into a cloud world now? What does it mean to move from more CapEx, what hospitals historically have been operating under, into more OpEx models? And ultimately, what does it mean to really advance what we call connected care, right? So with the massive influx of attacks and on hospital systems, for example, what does cybersecurity truly mean if you're in a highly regulated and highly sensitive data environment like a hospital or a physician's office? So bringing that to the table from a consulting world where you've seen all the good out there and the best players out there and all those capabilities, and really funneling this into our vision around advancing connected care, around our products, interoperability, and bringing that to our customers, our health providers, and systems, IDNs, etc., was really I would say, one of the biggest qualifiers. In addition, one of the things that I've been working on a lot in my days prior to Hillrom is really optimizing processes, right? Standardization and optimizing processes, and that's what a lot of our hospitals and the CIOs in our hospitals care about. How do I get to standard applications? How do I get to interoperable applications? How do I implement security, cyber zero trust environments, for example, and how do I optimize clinical workflows to improve outcomes for our patients? And that ability and that combination of new technologies and standardization is really I would say, a unique qualifier that allowed me to jump into this role and hopefully help bring Hillrom and our customers forward.
It sounds like you have a great sense of your customer, that you understand, you've gotten into the mind, and I think this is truly important in business. You have to understand your customer. You mentioned CapEx versus OpEx. You're even thinking about the way they can spend. They can spend, they're allowed to spend. How can they buy from us? So what do we have to do with our products? And also, how do we make it likely that they'll be able to purchase them? Can you talk more? That concept of really knowing the customer inside and out is interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. In the past, we used to call it customer or client intimacy, right? So we need to understand what a day-to-day, what we call our heroes, right? Our nurses and our doctors are going through every single day in order to even talk about what it means to optimize a clinical workflow or how to measure patient outcomes. That only works if we understand what they care about and what they live through every single day. What we've seen through COVID, one of the most significant disruptions ever that our health systems have experienced, it became clear how difficult it is if you're not standardized, if you don't have clear clinical workflows, if you don't know how to communicate with each other amongst the different parties within the hospital and our patients. So the need has just arisen so quickly and accelerated through COVID. Those are exactly the right discussions for us to have right now to be prepared for the future.
So you're talking about understanding doctors and nurses. Let's talk about understanding hospital and health system CIOs. You're a CIO at a company like Hillrom. That's different than being a CIO. I mean, there's similarities, of course. There's similarities. CIO is CIO. You're going to encounter some of the same challenges.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your thoughts about what are the needs, the challenges that CIOs at large health systems are dealing with right now. What are they trying to solve? And then we'll get to sort of how you're trying to position yourself to be a service provider of these people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, Anthony, you've been leading a lot of these conversations as part of your health system CIO, interview process. And what you hear from them is not different than what industry CIOs are dealing with every single day. At the top of their minds is certainly security and data privacy, right? So how do I protect the information and the assets that I have within my hospital, for example? How do I connect and provide connectivity amongst all the different devices and capabilities within the hospital without exposing anything to the outside? Right. And then, as I said, the third thing, how do I bring more standardization across my hospital? So if I have several hundred hospitals across the US, how do I connect them with all each other? They've all been grown. A lot of our health systems have grown over time through acquisitions, for example. How do I integrate an acquisition and keep them running and now drive, for example, analytics across all of them, not have 5 or 10 different solutions. So how do I, and that's why this advancing connected care for us is so important, because that's exactly what our health systems care about. The connectivity and cybersecurity and the security protection around this is what they truly care about. And when we say connecting care, that doesn't just mean the interoperability of our devices, for example, or the devices within the hospital. It also means the connectivity between the different parties within the hospital, the doctors, the nurses, the providers, etc., how they communicate with the patients, how do they get alerted, if something goes wrong with the patients, how interactive can we make the diagnostics, and how much intelligence can we give in the hands of, a doctor or a nurse in the hospital, so they can immediately see what's going on with their patients, for example, and how they be more accurate, how they drive outcomes. So those are, if you think about the top 3 or 4 things, that's what the health system CIO cares about. And honestly, that's what a true provider cares about, that cares about their customers. Right.
So Hillrom, traditionally, or one of the things people think about for Hillrom are the beds, incredibly sophisticated beds, but the beds come to mind. And I believe the company has been on a journey, and you could take me through sort of the evolution of this to go beyond that, to do more things, to provide
Absolutely.
more services. So that's part of the evolution of the company. But I want you to talk about that. But I also want you to talk about your onboarding to this process. And what I mean by that is you have a vision, before you even heard about the job opportunity, you had a belief system, a vision of what technology can do for companies, of trends, where things are going. You go to interview at a place like Hillrom, and I'm assuming you hear a vision. You present your vision and you hear a vision. This
Yeah.
is like anybody taking a job, right? And you see, are these in alignment? If you hear a vision that to you is not the right one or is not something you really are excited about, you say, maybe this isn't a job for me, right? But you heard a vision that you said, yeah, this is aligns with what I think is right and what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that was part of Hillrom's getting beyond beds vision.
Yeah.
Am I right? So just take me
Absolutely.
through that sort of evolution, where the company's going and sort of your onboarding to that process.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And Anthony, if you had John here right now, John Girdler, our CEO, when him and I talked and went through the interview, what he laid out as the vision was congruent and fully in line with where I thought, number one, the trends are going out there, where I think we should be going as a company, and what he's been on for the last 2 years as a CEO for Hillrom. When you look at only our strategy and vision around, advancing connected care and, really improving lives for patients and the caregivers, also where our M&A strategy has been going, right? So 5.5 years ago, Welch Allyn, right, the number one brand in the market around patient monitoring diagnostics. That was a significantly strategic move for us to grow, to your point, beyond beds. I mean, we've been on this journey beyond beds for a very, very long time. Now, our bed galaxy, our connectivity around the bed, is number one in the market, right? So there's no discussion about this. But when you look at all the acquisitions, Vault around our care communications, Excel Medical to improve the interoperability of devices within the hospital, Connecta, the better, I would say, diagnostic and visualization improvements. All of us, and recently Bardi, that you probably have heard about, going into the cardiac monitoring space, all of them are the interoperability of an ecosystem of capabilities that Hillrom has been on. And this is exactly the discussion that I had my first meeting with John. And what I've witnessed over the last even 8 months, Anthony, has just been impressive. The discussion around the connected care within the hospital, what it means to connect patient diagnostic to the care communication capabilities and to our bed galaxy, that ecosystem is what brings the power of the company, and that's what really excited me. Forefront of technology, all the the ability we're giving into our providers and into our caregivers' hands around analytics in the future, working with some of the large hyperscalers out there. That's what really excited me in joining the role here.
Let's talk a little bit about that CEO-CIO relationship. You just described your relationship with your CEO. This has been a classic discussion over the last 15 years about, the CIO should not be the one that fixes the projector when it doesn't work, right? That's sort of a joke, but it's an interesting dynamic to be a CIO. You want to lead, but you're not the CEO. So you need to lead, but you need to follow that vision. You don't want to be totally passive. You want to be bringing ideas, right? You're not just there to be told what to do. You're there to suggest ideas. Is it to suggest technology that can enable that larger vision that's established by the CEO? What do you think is the best way that relationship should function?
I think what I've witnessed, Anthony, John is a extremely forward and visionary CEO that truly understands the disruptability and the capabilities of technology and how the market is changing, right? As I mentioned earlier, from heavy like CapEx medical device to, for example, software-based and data-based decision-making and analytics and outcomes in the future. The collaboration, and I'm going to add one more party in here, our CTO, Brian Lawrence, extremely capable, forward-looking engineer that really oversees, the extension of our devices and connectivity, right? So we're working in lockstep, the three of us really on the capabilities outside in the market around our products that I just talked about, the inside of Hillrom and how we get better around our workflows, our processes, our technologies, and how we interact with our customers, right? The commerce capabilities, how do we get the best service to our customers and our service reps, etc. So it's a trifecta, I would say, of capabilities that really works. And I can tell you, I've not seen that everywhere, right? I've seen a lot of companies out there, a lot of large manufacturers, some of the health systems. That's not always the case. It really comes down to the leadership and their vision. And what you just described is not, again, it's just not a Hillrom challenge, right? CIOs and health systems historically have not been relevant, or not nearly as relevant as they are today. Now, leaders of large hospitals or health systems are looking to their CIOs to guide them. What does it mean for us to standardize on enterprise standards? What does it mean for us to connect my devices? How do we drive more cybersecurity? How do we protect our data better? The CIO has become massively relevant in those discussions in the health systems, and we're seeing that as well. Hence, we're having this discussion, and that's the right thing. It's the right thing. You need to have the strategic discussion at that level together with your CEO.
I wonder if we'll see more CIO to COO, CIO to CEO transitions. I've seen a few, but not a lot. But I wonder if we'll see that more, because technology is such a huge part of.
That's right. 5 years ago, or let's say 7 years ago, if you had a discussion with one of your health system, CEOs, let's say, and you would have talked about cloud, they would have said, like, leave me alone. I don't want to have any data out there in the cloud. It's not secure. It's not enough privacy. All my PHI, PII is exposed. I can't give any data outside. Not a discussion. Today, look at all the announcements out there from the large health systems and how they collect, collaborating with the hyperscalers. That wouldn't have been there 5-7 years ago. So the amount of disruption over the last few years has led to that accelerated role of and the importance of the CIOs that you're interviewing every day. In my opinion, we're seeing that, and the interactions that we're having around, the connected care strategies, they're happening with the CIOs, and that's the right role to have those discussions with.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Acquisitions. So you mentioned a few of the acquisitions. A lot of CIOs on the hospital side, they see vendors making acquisitions, and they're always a little dubious of the integration behind the scenes. So I would imagine that's just like a hospital acquiring a new hospital or a physician practice. The goal is then to make that a meaningful joining and not just a business joining, a meaningful. So is that one of your priorities to get those acquisitions integrated in a data flowing perspective, from a perspective of data moving? Or you tell me, what are you trying to do with those under the covers, so to speak?
Yeah. So one other reason, Anthony, why John brought me on as well, John and Barb brought me on, is our, the integrity or the synergies of acquisitions in the past. The Welch Allyn was one of the largest one, Trump Medical, our surgical capabilities, right, operating rooms, etc. We've acquired them, but historically we've really let them stand alone. And there's a value to standalone autonomous businesses as we drive our category leadership in the market. But there's also a lot of value in integrating back-end capabilities and standardizing processes around this, as we talked about workflow standardization. So one of the things that and it's public, we talked about this obviously in our analyst calls externally. One of the things that we're going through right now is our internal digital journey, which includes an integration of all of our businesses onto a common platform with common data models, common reporting and analytics, and common processes. So that's one of the things I'm overseeing internally. Our customers are delighted by it as we're interacting with them in a much more modern way. When it comes to service, they're seeing their products, their ability to order from us, interacting with us in all shapes and forms, but also our employees, and that's important, right? Like especially through COVID, we have seen a huge strain on employees and their mental health. So improving employee experience and standardizing processes for them is a big priority for John and for us and for me as well. So the internal integration around data interoperability of our applications and the security around this is one of my priorities as well.
We talked about the CIOs, the position getting elevated. Certainly the Chief Information Security Officer, the CISOs, really elevated as well. Security, top of mind for, just about everybody, absolutely top of mind, baked in at the beginning, no longer an afterthought. Does everybody get it? I think everybody gets it, that it's just, it's so important.
I mean, you open Wall Street Journal right now, front page, it talks about somebody else being ransomware or attacked or exposed, right? The massive uptake that especially our hospitals and health system customers have seen over the last few months, in particular throughout COVID, was just another awareness and reminder, how important this is, right? And how unprepared a lot of companies are. So yes, within Hillrom, the company gets that we've been operating very closely with, different standard setting boards out there, including the DOJ. You see a lot of our devices being certified under like the highest security standards. And that's something that, again, our health systems care about, right? As we bring our devices to them, the security around them is one of the top priorities. So yes, our CISO, our product IT security, as well as enterprise IT security are top of mind for everybody, including our CEO.
I think as a final question, I'd like to see if you have some advice for our health system CIOs, based on what you know. You haven't been in that role, but based on what you know about what they're dealing with, what's your best advice to them? And then as a second part, what do you want them to go away with from this call to understand about Hillrom? A lot of them are going to be customers and potential customers. So the first part is general advice for them to be successful based on what you're seeing. And the second part is what you want their takeaway to be about Hillrom.
Yeah. So advice, I think, is continue to be curious what's out there. What are the capabilities, disruptors, and technologies out there? Whether it's analytics, whether it's clinical workflows, whether it's connectivity, or whether it's security. Continue to be curious and walk with your eyes open, right? So you don't have to rush into something, but there are technologies that are advanced enough right now that can truly improve outcomes for the health systems and ultimately for the patients. So the curiosity balanced with speed is something that I would absolutely give as an advice. Second one about Hillrom, have take the time and talk to us about the broader connectivity within the hospital, the clinical workflows, and the connectivity and security around devices. That's really our strategy under our vision of advancing connected care. And talk to us about outcomes and how that can truly help across the full care continuum. That would be my my marketing advice here.
Very good, Sven. Well, I think that was a great chat. Appreciate your insight. Sounds like you're in an exciting role at an exciting time in life.
Absolutely.
And you're having fun, which is great. So very good to
great
talk
company.
to you, and hopefully we'll get to catch up again.
Anthony, appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Have a great day.
Thanks.